In this set of notes, we're going to be taking a look at a sampling activity that I would normally do in class. Unfortunately, we're not in class right now, so some of the numbers are going to have to be made up. In class, what I would have done is I would have assigned every student a number. So I'll write that up here. Assign each student a number. And I would start with 1 and then continue on until till we've reached the end. So let's say that in our population here, our class, we have 25 students. So I'll go 1 to 25 here, and we'll just make sure that our population, or N, is 25. Again, this is completely hypothetical. It was kind of cool to do in class, but unfortunately, we can't get that done right now. Also, you can see that perhaps based on when you're viewing this video, the social media is a little bit outdated. Maybe some of you still use these, maybe some of you don't. And there's probably other social media that you do use that would fit right here in the other category. So then I would have asked each student to write down which social media they prefer or they use the most: Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, or other. What we're going to do here is we're going to go through each individual sampling method. I really wanted to show you how you can do this using real data. Unfortunately, we're going to have to imagine what that is, but I want to show you how to do each particular sample. For the first one, we're gonna do a simple random sample. So what we're gonna do here is we're actually going to try to pick, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 sample numbers here and the result. So we're gonna pick 5 numbers and we're just gonna do it randomly from 1 to 25. So that's the deal with the simple random sample. You're just gonna pick 5 numbers randomly. And there's many ways you can do that and pick numbers out of a hat or do cards or something like that, but we're just going to use a calculator. So I'm going to show you how you can do that in the calculator. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to hit, I'll put the keystrokes right here. I'd like you to hit math, please, on the left-hand side. It's just below your alpha key. Then you're going to cursor right to the PROB, or the probability. That's supposed to be a P right there. To the probability menu. There's a few things you can do in this menu. You can use number 5, or if you have it, try to use number 8 here. So number 8 is rand int, or random integer, with no repetition. So this will make sure that we don't pick the same person like a bunch of times. So randomly you could get all 4s or something, but we're going to try to get different students here. We don't want just one student's take on this. Once you hit that, you're going to see a screen come up, and it should say, if you have the newer software version, lower, upper, and then N. So for this one, the lower bound is going to be 1. The upper bound is going to be 25. So that's the list of numbers, right, from 1 to 25, or the students in our hypothetical class. Now, N we set up here was 25 for the population, but the sample is just 5. So we want the calculator to pick 5 of those numbers. So I'll hit enter a few times, and my calculator gives me 14, 16, 24, 17, and 20. And then I would ask student 14. I would say, who's student 14? What do you like? And then they would say maybe Instagram. And number 16, I'd say, what do you use the most? Instagram. 24, that would be other. And then 17 might say, oh, Snapchat. And then 20 would say Instagram. So now, even though these are random, we don't actually know exactly what the class likes, but we could make the conclusion here. It says draw one conclusion. So we could make the conclusion that most of the class, or the majority of the class, uses Instagram. And that's one conclusion that we could make here. Now, we don't know if that's actually true or not, but statisticians try to do this. They try to take a random sample from a large population, and they try to say, well, with this random sample, this smaller group of the population, this is what's occurring. So we think that's also occurring with the entire population. And there's ways of doing that. Some are better than others, and that's what we're actually learning here in this little sample activity. So let's move on to the next one. Let's try a systematic sample. So for a systematic sample, I still want 5 samples. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick every fifth number to get my sample size right. And I know that because I can take my population and divide it by how many samples I want. So this is going to give me how to pick each fifth number. And you'll see how this happens here shortly. It might not make perfect sense right now. And then what we're also going to need to do is pick a start or a starting number. So to do that, we're going to pick out of 1 through 5, we're going to pick a number to start on. So we're going to go back in the calculator. We're going to type that math key. We're going to go right to PROB. Number 5 will work, or number 8 will work. And then I'm going to type in 1 now. So I'll put that in writing here. I'll type in the lower is 1. And if you don't know how to get to that point, just go back to the previous one. I work through that for you so that you can see what to type in your calculator. And then also we talked about it a little bit here. So we're going to go lower 1, upper now is 5. We only want to pick from 1 to 5 here. And we only need 1. So we're trying to pick just a starting number. So I'm going to do that in my calculator. And let's see what that calculator spits out. So my calculator spit out 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the third sample, and I'm going to pick every fifth sample after that. So that's 8, and that's 13, and that's 18, and that's 23. Now, if you do this correctly, you'll wind up with the right amount of samples. And when you pick a starting number, that should be completely random, and you can use a calculator for that. And then the system here is to just pick every fifth one after. Now, let's say the result here, let's make sure I'm not doubling up on this other stuff up here. So let's see here. Let's say the result was other, and then other, and then snap, and then snap, and then other. So these results are a little different than the one before. Well, that's just the randomness of it. But what just happened here is we're going to draw another conclusion about the population. So this sample says, well, maybe most people use other or something else for social media. So that's like our conclusion here. That's a systematic way of sampling. It's a little different than the random. Did you notice for the random, we just pick 5 numbers at random, but with this one, there's like a little system that we use. We have to choose a starting number, and then we picked, in this case, every fifth number after that. This is really good to get just a good, diverse selection, I guess you'd say, of your population. With the simple random, we could have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would be like the first 5 people. So that's completely random, but not really a system, and you're not really getting the rest of the people in the class. How would we do a cluster sample here? Well, I need 5 people. So what I would do here is I would group people into 5 groups, or students into 5 groups. And then what I would do is I would give each group a number. Give each group a number, 1 through 5. The reason why I'm doing that is I'd like to have 5 people in my sample. And conveniently, we have a class of 25 students, so 5 groups of 5 would work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one group and sample all in that group. So in my calculator, I'm going to do that random integer again. And so I'm going to go to math here. We'll go right to PROB. Let's see, math, PROB. And then we're going to go down to number 8, or you can just type number 8. My lower in this case is 1, my upper is 5, and n is 1. So if you need to know how to do that, go back to the previous example. It's the exact same thing you're going to type in. And let's see here. I must have hit a button here that was not right. TV timeout, commercial break. Okay, so my calculator spit out a 4. So I would take the fourth group and I would sample everybody in that group. So the fourth group here, gosh, that might be, let's see, 16, 17. This is the number of the student now who's in that group, and then 20. Okay, whatever those student numbers are. So let's see if I have 16, 17, 18, 19, or 20. So I've got 18 right here. 18 said snap. I'm going to try to keep it as, I mean, this person would probably say the same thing, I would hope, right? Unless they're joking around with us. But let's go ahead and see here. We got 18. Oh boy. Let's see. We got 16, 17, and 20. So we got Instagram, Snap, and Instagram. Okay. So we got Instagram, Snap, and Instagram. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make this one Snap. So 19, I don't think we had before if we look at the other ones. And so 19 is a new one. Say student 19, you haven't talked yet. What is your most used social media? And you would say in this, that person in this case, we're imagining they said Snap. So what is a conclusion we could draw? And we could say most people, so most people in class use Snapchat. Whoops. Use Snapchat the most. It's a valid conclusion from our little sample here. Whether or not it's actually true is a different story. But once again, inferential statistics is all about pulling a random sample from a population and making conclusions or inferences about that population. In our last one here, we're going to do a stratified sample. And in this case, we're going to do still 5 samples, okay? And let's say that we did, a sample based on gender. So we'll do, let's see here, we'll do boys and girls. And so for boys and girls, let's just say in our class there were 10 boys and 15 girls. That's just how the cookie crumbled. That's the makeup of the class. In this case, what we would do is we would take the 10 and we would divide it by the total. So 10 divided by 25 is 0.4. And then we would do 15 divided by 25, and that's 0.6. So this gives us a relative percentage. Like in the class, 40% are boys and 60% are girls. Well, what we'll do then is we'll take our sample size, which is 5. So we'll do boys and girls again, and this is going to be for the sample. Okay. So we'll do our sample, and we'll do 0.4, excuse me, our percentage or our decimal here, our proportion, and we'll do 0.4 times the sample size. So 0.4, 2/5 times 5 is 2. So this represents our sample here, and this represents the population right there. Let's see. Okay. So what we want is we're going to have 2 boys, and then we're going to have the girls. We're going to do 0.6 times 5. So we want to keep that same proportion that we have in the sample that we do in our population. That's a key to stratified sampling. And of course, 0.6 or 3/5 times 5 would be 3. So then what we would do is we'd randomly pick 2 boys and we'd randomly pick 3 girls. So let's say that our 2 boys are randomly picked are number 1 and number 4. And then our girls are number 1, 3, and let's go 14. Now remember that you can give those boys and girls new numbers, and then you would select randomly 2 from the boys and 3 from the girls. So let's say the boys, we got other, we got Snapchat, and again, this is a reordering of our original order. You'd have to take all the boys, put them in a group, and say, all right, count off by ones. Girls, same thing. Let's say this other person like Snap, and then we had other, and then we had Instagram here. Okay, so this is kind of a tie between Snapchat and other. We could make that conclusion though about the population and say either Snapchat or other is what is used most. All right. Well, that's a pretty good rundown of four different ways of sampling. There are more than that, but for our class, that's what we're going to need to know. And I hope you've enjoyed imagining what it would be like in class and also enjoy the mix behind making this happen.